Hi everyone. Tonight's video is going to be on coordinate geometry. So coordinate geometry is basically using the coordinate plane to help us answer some questions regarding different geometric concepts. So what we're going to be doing mostly with this tonight is going to be using this to calculate area and perimeter. Okay, those are the two things that we're going to use the coordinate plane to help us solve. So what we're going to have is a few different shapes, and we're going to plot them on the coordinate plane. And then we're going to use the distance and midpoint formulas to find the length of different sides. And then that'll help us be able to calculate the perimeter and area of different shapes. So what we're going to do is develop a little plan of how to use coordinate geometry, and then we're going to do some examples. So whenever we're going to try to calculate the perimeter and area of a shape using coordinate geometry, there's three steps that we want to do. First, we want to plot our given information on the coordinate plane. So usually these questions will give us like the vertices of a shape, and that's going to be the very first thing that we have to do is plot them on a coordinate plane. Because second is we're going to have to interpret the question, and we're going to have to use our diagram. So what does the given information provide you with? So if it's three vertices, then I know that my shape is probably going to be a triangle. So we'll need to connect the vertices with segments to make a specific shape. And then if it's asking me for like the area or the perimeter, well, I would need to define the length of each side. So I might have to use other tools like the distance or midpoint formula to determine what the lengths of sides are. And then the last thing that we want to do always is develop a plan to answer in our question. So we'll have to use the appropriate formula to calculate the different lengths of the sides, or make sure we're using, if it's to find the area of a triangle, let's make sure we're using the formula to find the area of the triangle. And then the last thing we always want to remember is that our final answer needs to be in response to what's being asked. So if it asks me for the area of a triangle, I'm not going to give it just the length of one side, right? I might need to find the length of one side using like the distance formula, but make sure that then you're using that to actually answer the question that's being asked. So let's do an example. Find the perimeter and area of the shape with vertices at A, B, and C. So first thing we're going to do is plot those points, right? So over here, we got our three steps. Plot your given information on the coordinate plane. So I have the point -1, 3 is right here. That's A. B is at -3, -1. So down here is B. And C is at 4, -1. 1, 2, 3, 4. And down here is C. So I plot my given information. And now I use my diagram to interpret the question. So find the perimeter and area of the shape with these vertices. So if this is a shape and these are the vertices, then I know that the vertices are the endpoints of each side. So I'm going to connect these vertices together. And so my shape is a triangle. So if I want to find the perimeter and area of this shape, I'm using the formulas for the perimeter and area of a triangle. So the perimeter is pretty easy. We just add all the sides together. So in order to do that, let's develop our plan to answering the question and calculate our answer. So to find perimeter, what I want to do is find the length of each side. So that's my plan for finding the perimeter. For area, I need to find what? What pieces of information do I need for area? Area needs, in the formula for a triangle, is 1/2 the base times the height. So I need to find the length of the base and height. Okay, the base will be part of the perimeter, but the height we'll have to find on our own. So perimeter, find the length of each side. Area, find the length of the base and the height. So let's do that. The easy side to figure out is the side between B and C, because that's just a straight line across, and I can just count the number of spaces in between here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that length of BC is 7 units. Okay, so that's one side already done. So I can write this down at the bottom. BC equals 7 units. Okay, that's the length of BC. Now let's figure out what AB and AC are to get my other two sides. So the coordinates here, we can also label those on our diagram, or remember that they're written up here. So A is -1, 3, B is -3, -1, and C is 4 and -1. So these coordinates are going to help us find the distance between A and B. So we're just going to need to use our distance formula. Okay, so if we want to use the distance formula to figure out the distance between a couple of these points, let's look at them separately. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to be looking at points. Let's find this distance here between A and B. So A and B. Okay, we're going to try to find that distance in orange, and then in green we'll do the work to find the distance between A and C, which is the third side here. All right, so in orange, let's consider A, that's red, let's consider A our point 1. And so A is going to be x1, y1, and B is going to be point 2, so we're going to call that x2, y2. And so now we're going to be finding the distance using the distance formula. And you still might want to just get in the habit of doing this, where you write out your 2 points, identify what's x1, y1, and x2, y2, and then write out the formula. x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. Okay? So in this case, x1 equals -1, y1 equals 3, x2 equals -3, and y2 equals -1. Okay, so I've labeled A and B, my x1, y1, and x2, y2. Identify all those parts, and now plug them into the distance formula to figure out the distance between A and B. You can also, you might see just the D in front, but to clarify that we're finding the distance between A and B, we can write the distance between A and B like this. And so let's plug this in. x2 is -3 minus x1, which is -1, plus y2, which is -1, minus y1, which is 3. Okay, and let's simplify this. That's the square root of -3 minus -1 is really -3 plus 1, so that's -2 squared, plus -1 minus 3, that's -4 squared. And so we'll get the square root of 4 plus 16, which is the square root of 20. Okay, so the square root of 20 is my distance for A and B. And we'll leave it at that for now. We'll do an approximation of all of this when we actually add up the perimeter. But for now, we'll leave it as the square root of 20. Okay, so now we want to find the distance between A and C so that we can find that third side of the triangle. So we'll write that out down here. We'll call A x1, y1 again, and C will be x2, y2. Set up our distance formula as, just write it out, x2 minus x1, quantity squared, plus y2 minus y1, quantity squared. Okay, and let's fill in those values for x1, y1, x2, and y2. Scroll up here. Okay, so the x1 and y1 will be the same again, -1 and 3, because those are the coordinates of A. And for C, we're going to use x2 is 4 and y2 is negative 1. So 4 and negative 1. And now let's plug those values in. And so we get x2, which is 4, minus negative 1, quantity squared, plus negative 1 minus 3, quantity squared. Let's do some simplifying. 4 plus 1 is 5. 5 squared is 25. Negative 1 plus negative 3 is negative 4. Squared is 16. So here we have the square root of 41. Okay, so we have our three sides, so now we can find our perimeter. So the perimeter of a triangle is the sum of all of the sides. So to find the perimeter, we are going to add together BC plus AB plus AC. So 7 plus the square root of 20 plus the square root of 41. And here we can approximate, so we'll round these to just 1 decimal point is fine. So the square root of 20 is right about 4.5, and the square root of 41 is right about 6.4. So the perimeter is 7 plus 4.5 plus 6.4, which is about 17.9. So the perimeter is 17.9 units. And since we don't have anything specific here, like it didn't give us inches or anything like that, we can just say units in terms of the units of our coordinate plane. Okay, so that's how we would find perimeter. We'd also want to find the area, right? It asks for the area of this shape. So remember, the formula for the area of a triangle is 1/2 the base times the height. So I'm just going to erase this to give ourselves some room. So area is 1/2 base times height. And in this case, we can find the base and the height pretty easily. We've already found the base, that's BC. And that's easy to just count the units between B and C. So the base here is 7. And then the height, what we do to find the height of this triangle is we are going to start at point A and just draw a straight line that's perpendicular to the base of our triangle. Okay, so that's how high our triangle is. And this is nice because since the base lies as a horizontal line here, we can just count the units from A to the base along this perpendicular line. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4 units. So here, our height of the triangle is 4 units. So the area is 1/2 the base, which is 7, times the height, which is 4, which is going to be 1/2 of 7 times 4, which is 28. And so our area is 14, in this case we would say square units, or you could say units squared. So I'll just say square units because we don't have inches or meters or anything like that. So here we're making sure we interpret our answer into what we are being asked. So the perimeter, we already said, was 17.9 units. And here it's area, so area is always in units squared or square units. So here our answer is 14 square units. Okay, so that's basically all we're doing. We're setting up our shape on the coordinate plane using the specific vertices that we're given. And then we're using the distance and midpoint formula to find the missing sides. And then we're making sure that we answer our question. So whatever we're being asked, perimeter or area, is what we're going to be doing mostly in this section. So just make sure that your final answers are the perimeter and the area, and that you're using the proper terms and units. So for some fun on your own tonight, you can try these two. So first of all, this one will be a little bit easier. Just identify the type of polygon that has these vertices. A, B, C, D, and E. That'll give you a hint as to how many sides there are of this polygon. So there's 5 vertices to plot, and then determine what shape it is, and then find its perimeter. And then find the perimeter and area of the shape with vertices at R, P, and Q. This will be very similar to the example that we just did. So use your notes to help you complete these two problems and bring these to class tomorrow, and I will see you then. Have a great night.